Hey, what's up? Back with another gig log. This was a long weekend. I ended up having 3 this weekend. But before we get further, let's rewind it for a minute. Go back to Wednesday. I found out Wednesday that I lost my wedding for next Sunday. A real tragic event. They had to cancel or postpone or whatever, but unfortunately, it's no longer going on. So I thought I was down a gig. And then on Thursday, I got a call from a friend DJ of mine who was sick and afraid that he might have the COVID. And so he took a test and was waiting for the results and said, I just don't feel good anyway. You know, is there any way you could do the gig? And I had this Friday off, so I picked up a gig. Substitute DJ on Friday. I picked up a wedding, got all the information on Thursday. I called up the groom, spoke with him for a little while. So I picked up a gig. Lost a gig Wednesday, picked up a gig Thursday. It's just the way it works. And man, this is a crazy season. So it's been a while since I've done 3 in a weekend. So all 3 were really cool. Friday, I was at Oakholm Brewery and Farm in Brookfield, I think. And then Saturday, I was at the Spencer Country Inn in Spencer. And then Sunday, I was at the Colonial Hotel in Gardner. Anyway, really good weekend overall. It was a long weekend, but it wasn't too bad. I mean, I'm not too tired. It's a couple days later right now. I've had a little time to recoup. Anyway, so I'm going to try to piece together these gig logs in 1, I guess. Or maybe 3. No, I'll try to do it in 1. So Friday's gig, I got there, as early as I could, my first time there. Took a wrong turn, ended up with some goats, and there was a tent, but there was like picnic chairs underneath, and it just didn't seem like the right place. So I ended up having to call the groom. And he's like, do you see the lake? I said, no, I see some goats. He said, you're on the wrong spot. And so he eventually got me there. I had to kind of go through the woods to get there. Really beautiful, though. So I found a field and a lake and a beautiful tent that was clearly set up for a wedding. So I knew I was in the right place. But real cool place, real cool people. Actually bumped into the bartender there. I used to work with her years ago at a different restaurant. The beer was really, really good. They had homebrew beer. It was a brewery, so they had beer from the place. I didn't have a chance to go into the brewery, but it looked like a cool place, and it wasn't that far from my house, so I'm probably going to check that out one of these days on my day off. So I go to set up the ceremony way down by the lake. Real pretty spot, and there were these little cabins right there, and the groomsmen had one of them to kind of hang out at before the wedding. So they were out there fishing and drinking and just listening to tunes. So they invited me in for a beer. So I go in there, we're hanging out, and we're talking music and stuff. It was a really cool time hanging out with them. Freezing cold, actually. It was freezing. None of us were ready for that. It's been so hot this summer. And I mean, it's, kind of turning fall now. So the weather's been getting a little chillier, but out of nowhere, it was freezing that night. And so you can see different people have like full on winter coats. I happen to be wearing my blazer jacket that night, which I don't do very often, or I haven't, at least this summer, because it's just been so hot. But I was sure glad I did tonight. Groom came up to me at one point. He's like, hey, do you know the song Farmhouse by Fish? I'm like, yeah, weird request at a wedding. He's like, my friend, he's a really big Fish fan. He'd really love to hear it. He's about to leave. So I ended up playing it for him, and it didn't go over very good, as I didn't really expect it to. But whether or not you know this, I'm a huge Fish fan, and I may have just lost all your respect by telling you that, or I may have gained your respect, depending on how you feel about him. Anyway, shouldn't change your mind. So it was cool. So I ended up talking with that guy for a couple minutes about fish, because we're crazy like that. But anyway, ended up being a good time. Man, so that was a fun one. It ended up being a really cold one. It was out in a tent. We were at Oakholm Brewery and Farm. Really pretty place. My first time there. Great couple. Man, they were really, really easygoing, which is really nice, considering I just met them today. We had a lot of fun. Great place, great times. Yeah. So Saturday night was at the Spencer Country Inn. Nice place. Not one of my favorites, but definitely a nice place. Nice enough people, don't get me wrong. I feel like I'm talking shit. I'm not. It's a nice place. Just not one of my favorites. Anyway. Now, luckily, I don't have to come through this door, but I've never understood what this lip is right here. I mean, really, come on now. So, it was a small wedding, as you can see, enormous room. Small wedding, it was under 100 people. It was mostly first responders, or there was a lot of first responders, EMTs, firefighters, police officers. And one police officer actually did his wedding a couple of years ago, and he came right over. He's like, hey, you know, he told me that he actually referred me to the bride and groom that night, which was really fantastic. That was really nice. Later in the night, another girl came up to me, and I used to do parties for her family years ago, you know, back when I started. So it was good to see her again. I haven't seen them in a minute. So the bride had these drink tickets, and I didn't know anything about them. Normally, I mean, I would be able to announce to people, hey, on your table, you got these drink tickets, use them. But I didn't know about them, so I didn't announce anything. So she came up to me after we were dancing. She's like, hey, nobody's been using these drink tickets. Will you make announcements and let people know to use them? And she came up to me 2 or 3 times over the night. I could see her out there, like, trying to hand out drink tickets, and people didn't even want them at that time of the night. Crazy. Anyway, so she ended up giving me a bunch. Hey, what are you going to do? I'll happily take your drink tickets, but you know, they don't, non-transferable. How many can you use? Couple? Anyway. So best man speech, he was a little feeling pretty good by the time best man speech came, and you know, he's talking like this and the microphone way out. You know, I had to stop him like, dude, you got to keep the mic near your mouth. He's like, oh yeah, sorry. And those guys over there, you know, he's pointing, and you know, it's tough. All right, dude, got to keep it near your mouth. So he started getting annoyed with me because I'm the bad guy. Anyway. You know, by the end of it, he didn't drop the mic, you know, which is the rudest thing ever, you know, but, you know, he kind of like put it down on the table. It's this big pop, bang, you know, whatever. I'm like, man. So, you know, of course I cut it off. So he picks it up a minute later and he's trying to talk into it. And he's like, I don't know why I can't hear myself out of this. Really, bro? You don't know why you can't hear yourself out of it? See you later. He came up for a request later on that night, and I don't think I had it. You know, it's just the way that works. So, you know, I don't mean to be a jerk, but hey, I ended up playing it for him. I did, you know. I don't hold grudges, and I'm really not like that. But, you know, I was pissed. I was pissed for a minute, but I played it for him. But only because we had so many slow songs. So, anyway, I normally don't play many slow songs. I end up playing 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. It's just the way, that's what the crowd wanted. It was a different crowd. There were these girls who were just sitting on the stone fireplace there. And, you know, they were in their 20s or whatever, but they seemed like teenagers. And I don't mean that rudely. I mean that in the way they acted at a dance, where, you know, they would request songs. When it was time to dance, they would run out there and dance for like 30 seconds and then get bored, but then go back and sit there on their phone. It was kind of annoying because they were right on the dance floor. And while there's people dancing, they're just sitting there just, you know, on their phone. And it's not conducive to the dance floor. You know, you're not really inspiring. And really, if you like dancing, get up and dance. You know, just have a good time. They requested WAP, of course, which, have I played it this year? Maybe, you know, maybe a couple times. It's not something people have requested very much. You know, I'm not the morality police or whatever, as Brian S. Red would say. I'm not a moral cop here, but at the same time, if Grandma's still in the room, that song that's pretty explicit. Even the edited version, yes, even the edited version is still pretty gross. Catchy as all hell, man, and I dig it. I do. You know, it's a fun song, but yeah, the crowd kind of needs to be right for me to feel super comfortable playing it. I mean, whatever. So they were asking for it early, and I was like, guys, if I'm going to play this, it's got to be later. It can't be this early. And so a little bit later, they asked for it again. I was like, all right, you know, let me work into it. And the next song, the bride comes up because now they've got her to come ask me. I'm like, really? So the bride's like, just play it for him, you know, whatever. And they went off and started twerking and like getting raunchy, and shit was going down, man, for like 30 seconds to a minute, and then they got bored with it and sat down, got back on their phones. So I'm left with this song, and everybody who wanted it is no longer there. Grandma's still in the house, and so anyway, you know, I ended up following up. I ended up doing a little set, Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, and they actually really dug it. So it ended up being pretty good, but boy. So the event was only supposed to be 5 hours, which I was actually really looking forward to because, you know, I had a gig the night before, a gig the next day, so hoping for a nice easy night. Dance time, you know, got kind of crunched, as everything kind of always runs late, is the way it does. So, you know, I front loaded it with bangers, man. I front loaded like so many bangers right at the beginning because I figured we had such a short amount of time, such a large room and such a small group. I wanted to maximize what I could with the dance floor. So almost immediately after I like plow through all these bangers, we got, you know, about a half hour left, and the bride comes up. She's like, hey, you know, can you stay another hour? I'm like, yeah, you know, absolutely. And you never run out of music. There's always plenty of music, but had I known that extra hour was coming, I probably would have spread it out a little bit more, spread out over the course of the night. But anyway, it ended up being a good time. What else? Oh yeah, slow songs. And that was the other thing, slow songs. Everybody wanted to hear slow songs. That's all they wanted to hear. You know, cycling the dance floor as best I could. You know, nothing always worked the way it normally would. Definitely a bit of a struggle for me. But the one thing that was working all night was the slow songs, and that's what they kept requesting, so that's what I ended up playing most of the night. But it ended up being a good one. These are the kind of pictures where the eyes follow you as you walk through the room. So gig 3, Sunday, was at the Colonial Hotel in Gardner, which is just over an hour away. It's really in the middle of nowhere. It's very pretty and really cool place, but man, it's out there. Man, this is such a pretty ballroom. I think I've only really been out at the tent. I did do one ceremony in here a few years ago, but it definitely wasn't looking like this. This is looking really nice. Cool families, really nice. When I met with them, the bride and groom, they were really cool. Playlist, I gotta admit, I was slightly apprehensive about. So there was a lot of music that, some of it was like droney. There was some Jose Gonzalez stuff that's really cool, man, to just like sit and get stoned and listen to, but not exactly great for cocktail hour or dinner. And, you know, then they had a few dance songs on their list, and they were like Biggie Smalls, Lil Jon, you know, like just crunk, like getting down. And I mean, we're talking, this is a Sunday wedding, and it's on the earlier side. I think it ended at 9:30, or yeah, I think it ended at 9:30. So I mean, you know, a late afternoon sort of wedding on a Sunday. So when I talked to them, I was like, hey, you know, like, how do you see this going down? Do you want me to play dance music, whatever? And they're like, yeah, you know, dance music, and then, you know, maybe we can get a little crunk later, but a little apprehensive going into it. All right, it's about 20 minutes before ceremony, and as you can see, it is pretty drizzly out here right now. So I'm waiting to kind of set anything up until we know what's going on. We may have to move the ceremony inside, but waiting to make the call. When I get there, it was just threatening rain all day. And so luckily, where the ceremony is, it's this nice little pergola out on a little field, or a lawn, or whatever you want to call it. But I could park right next to where I set up. So I got everything set up, sound checked it, everything was great. You know, it was kind of sprinkling, spitting, you know, whatever. So I unplugged a few of the main things. My Sennheiser transmitter, the top of my Bose L1, the laptop, obviously, you know, a couple of the important things, stuffed them in my car and just threw tablecloth over the stuff that I could, just in the interim. And then when it was time when people started to be seated, you know, I was able to get the stuff out there and get the music playing. And luckily it held out for the whole ceremony, thank God. Anyway, ceremony went well. All right, so ceremony was a success. I screwed up a little bit at the end there. When it was time to hit the recessional music, I hit it right on time and nothing came out. And I went and checked the volume on the speaker. Speaker was fine. I looked back at the laptop. I had pulled the volume down on that deck. Luckily, I had it queued up in both decks, so I just started playing it in the other deck, and it got going. But, you know, it was a few seconds late. Not the end of the world, but I was just a little disappointed in myself that I didn't notice that I had lowered the volume. So after the ceremony's over, I'm letting the recessional music play, and then I gotta run across the parking lot to get back to cocktail hour to get the music going, which I was ahead of everybody, so it was no big deal. I mean, it's kind of a big parking lot to run across, but anyway. So I run all the way across, and I get in there, and you go through the doors, and there's this big wide hallway that you kind of cut across to go right into the ballroom. And when I went there, I noticed that the ballroom doors were closed, and there was this giant table filled with cheeses and stuff right in the middle of the hallway. And that's when I realized, hey, cocktail hour is probably in this hallway, not in the ballroom, which I didn't plan on. No big deal. But anyway, I go in the ballroom, I turn up the music just in case, even though I know that's not going to be the case. I go back all the way up to unplug the ceremony system, bring that back down. And at that point, yeah, everybody's hanging out in the hallway. The entire cocktail hour is in the hallway. So I quickly get the Bose system plugged in. I could have, sent the satellite signal and just played what I had going in the ballroom, but I had a tablet with me that had a cocktail playlist already downloaded on it. So I just set that right up in the corner and just pumped the music in from there, and it worked great. So that was a good one. Whew. So then, really loved the groom's family. Everybody was really nice, don't get me wrong, but the groom's family was fantastic. A lot of fun. His parents were a blast. Most of the people there were from New York, or a ton of them there were from New York. So they wanted to hear New York is one of the big ones that they were all really excited to hear. So when I played that, man, they went crazy. They loved it. A bunch of them out there in the big circle. It was great because at the end, it ends with that big triumphant New York. It ends. And they're all applauding. Whoa, I let it kind of fade out. And they're like, "Go Red Sox!" And I hit him with a banger right after. And it was awesome. It was awesome. This one guy comes over. He's like, "I'll show you, go Red Sox!" And he gets me in a headlock. And it was like, the father of groom's right there, and they're all laughing. It was just real quick. He was giving me a little noogie or something, but it was all good fun. Just fun Red Sox Yankees stuff. But it was really cute the way it all went down. Dancing was kind of a struggle all night. This was a little bit weirder than last night. Last night, it was more, they'd start dancing for a few seconds and then get bored and sit down. Tonight, it took them a few seconds to get going. Touch upon something Aaron Strawn said earlier this week about Fancy Like not working. And now Fancy Like is, huge hit. So at the beginning of September, maybe it was just the weddings that I had, but it was a big, big hit. And the last few times I've tried it, it really hasn't, it's worked less and less and less. So much so that this last time that I played it, I just mixed right out of it. Actually, you know what? I didn't play it tonight. I played it Saturday. Sorry. On Saturday, I mixed right out of it, almost right away, because it just wasn't working. So anyway, on Sunday, it took everybody kind of a minute to get going. I'd get a song going, I'd be like, "Oh man," and everybody's like kind of milling about or leaving. I'm like, all right, so like I get on there, I start like looking for something to, mix into or whatever. And I look up and all of a sudden the dance floor is packed. It's like, hey, where'd you all come from? And so it was a weird rotation of people. So I was rotating them around. So like I said, the dance music that this couple had picked was kind of crunk. So I got into it, and it went over well. And then, so we get to the end of the night and we play the last two songs and everything's fantastic. And I start chanting the one more song. So I look down and there's one song on their list that I hadn't played yet. And that was Biggie's Hypnotize. Absolute banger. I mean, I love that song. And I was like, well, the other stuff worked pretty good. It's on their list. This, okay, this is a good one. So I throw it on, and the crowd's like, woo, they're getting down. And it's good. It's not fantastic, but it's good. A few seconds into it, the groomsman comes running up. He's like, dude, Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer right now. I was like, oh man, this is the last song of the night, wherever. He's like, dude, right now, Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. That's the song you need to play. I'm like, you know what? I look out at the audience. I'm like, you know what? You're probably right. And so like, almost like just needle across the vinyls. I was like, folks, I'm sorry. This is the last song of the night. I threw it on and my God, that place exploded, like absolutely exploded. That was the right song. I feel like I misread the crowd. I was thinking, well, it was on their list and pretty good, but man, I should have known. No. Okay, so here was the problem. Here's why I misread this crowd. Earlier in the night, one of the guests in the crowd came up to me. We were talking music, and he said, "Isn't it funny how AC/DC's 'You Shook Me All Night Long' is a song no matter how old you are, everybody loves that song and everybody dances to it." And I agreed, and I said, "Yeah, it's fantastic. What a great rock song." So I ended up playing it at some point in the night, and it didn't go over very good at all. Like, it really didn't inspire much of anything. So I didn't think that they were going to be that kind of a crowd. Anyway, that's how I misread them. But end result, end of the night, absolutely fantastic. Bon Jovi, "Living on a Prayer" was the right song to end with. Anyway, it was a blast. I gotta say, in rankings, I really liked that Sunday one a lot. I liked them all, don't get me wrong, but that Sunday one was a blast. Putting my DJ pronunciation skills to the test.
Like you never gonna stop. Oh, when you leave some dead, you want a lady in the street, but a freak in the bed and say, "God, what is raining now? We ain't talking about more. Threatening now." Look back.
I've got 2 more next week. And then 3 more the week after. Crazy busy season, but I'm loving it. Thank you again so much for watching. Peace.